old man was a warrant officer in the Guard, so, my hair is as long as it's ever been in my life. I feel like it's a little too long right now. So I grew up in a military family. He was in World War II. He was in the Guard. There was no question at a certain point I would go into the military. Joined ROTC at the University of Alabama. My first day there, I called my father, who was in the Alabama National Guard, and I said, Dad, I got a choice between the Army ROTC and the Air Force ROTC. And my father said, go in the Air Force, boy, they got air conditioning. So I joined ROTC, and in my junior year, I was in the Professional Officer Corps, got a scholarship my senior year, got commissioned that next spring as a second lieutenant in the Air Force, and then went on active duty about 2 months after that. I graduated from the university in 1970. And I went on active duty in July of 1970 to go to school at Lowry Air Force Base, Colorado, as an air intelligence officer. I spent 6 months out at Lowry going through the school, and it was still a Vietnam situation. So they pushed us through rather quickly. We went in the morning from 6 a.m. to noon. Enlisted personnel went from noon to 6 p.m. So they used the classrooms 12 hours a day, and we were rolling through there. And most of my class ended up going directly to Southeast Asia, either to Vietnam or Thailand. I got an assignment instead to Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina, where I was working in wing intelligence at a training base, briefing reconnaissance pilots, electronic combat pilots, and that sort of thing. And I was there for about a good year or so, and in the summer of 1972, I had the opportunity to go back to the university to work on my master's degree under something called Operation Bootstrap. This is one of those good deals the Air Force gives you. Now, for every good deal, there's another deal. I got back, and there was a stack of orders sitting on my desk at Shaw to be in Vietnam the following week. So I packed up, went home on leave, and while I was home on leave, my father had his second heart attack, and I got a week's delay in my port call, stayed home, and it sounds like a bad novel, but I left him in the hospital where he kissed me and said, I'll pray for you. And I was sitting next to a lady on the plane, and she said, well, where are you going? I said, Vietnam. She said, I thought the war was over. Not yet, ma'am. That was the same week that Henry Kissinger, the Secretary of State, announced peace is at hand. So I'm on my way over. He's saying the war is over. And I got to Saigon. And of course, just like the other good deal I got, I had a nice cushy job in Saigon at an office. And when I in process, they said, Lieutenant, your orders have changed. You're going up in the mountains with the Army. Okay. So I got reassigned to the Central Highlands of Vietnam with an 18-man Air Force element that ran something called a Direct Air Support Center, where we coordinated airstrikes between the forward air controllers, the fighter bomber guys, our people in Saigon, the Army, and all that. We were a coordination center running 24 hours a day, and I was their intelligence officer. So I was there from October of 1972 until the war ended on the 28th of January 1973. What happened is all of us who did not have a complete year's tour got reassigned in the Pacific Command. So I went to Thailand and worked at a large intelligence organization there with fighters and gunships who were conducting air war in Cambodia until that ceasefire happened in August, and then I came home in October. Being on an Army compound and being a junior officer, the Army decided that it would be a lot of fun to put us on guard duty and to be officer of the day and Army stuff, which I had no frame of reference for. But we were so few in number because as this war wound down, there were so few of us left in country that you had to kind of do what needed to be done. So they put me on a bunker with a machine gun one night, and a couple of nights I was up there with an M16, and a couple of times Christmas night, as a matter of fact, I was officer of the day, and I was up all night patrolling the perimeter, making sure that our Chinese mercenary guards were awake. So you did what you had to do. It was kind of interesting and yet a little frightening. It was something I wasn't trained for at all. And lastly, there were the B-52s. Lyndon Johnson and then Nixon would literally plan their strikes from the White House on Tuesday. In very rigid three-ship formations. And they flew at 40,000 feet. So one day we were out playing soccer with our Vietnamese allies, and everything stopped. And we looked up in the sky, and there was a little bitty speck, and then a second one, and a third one, all in trail. And then all of a sudden the ground shook. Those airplanes carried 108 500-pound multi-purpose bombs, general purpose bombs, each. We had a strike somewhere around 18 kilometers from where I was. I got under the bed. I thought we were being attacked. It was awesome. The destructive power of that was unbelievable. And when they got unleashed on Hanoi, it was unbelievable what damage they could do. We had a period there in 1970, in my senior year, right after the invasion of Cambodia and the Kent State shootings, that we actually had a riot on the campus of the University of Alabama late in May of that year. Not a part of that, didn't believe in it, saw what was going on and going, really? Maybe you don't have all the facts. So there were a series of teach-ins and protests and noontime candlelight vigils. So one evening there was a disturbance on campus which prompted the Tuscaloosa Police Department to violate that town and gown kind of border and actually charge onto the campus with billy clubs. Kids are running down Sorority Row. It was a demonstration that got out of hand. They brought in the Alabama Highway Patrol to protect the campus from the Tuscaloosa Police Department. And we had optional final examinations. There were highway patrolmen parked all over the place. I guess in the narrowest sense of the definition, there was a riot. We had a class meeting, ROTC, and our professor said, well, we heard they're going to burn some buildings. Anybody know anything about it? So the smart aleck guy on the back row, myself, said, yeah, probably old Dressler Gym in the Army Supply Building. 2 o'clock that morning, I get awakened that both of those buildings were on fire. At 8 o'clock that morning, I was in the Commandant and Cadet's office having to explain how I knew that. And both of them were out in the woods. There was absolutely they were going to tear down the old gym, and the other building was out in the woods. And if they were going to burn anything, nobody was going to get hurt. And that, I got called in on that one. The Kent State riot shook everybody. The Ohio National Guard killed 4 people. Having a father in the Alabama National Guard who had been called out on riot duty a few times, I kind of took the position that the Guard came out to protect the campus. When I found out that somebody had given them live ammunition and that there was no command and control and they were firing M1s at basically students, my opinion changed. But it took a while because raised in a military family and father was a proud member of the Guard, I tried to look at it from their point of view. You don't give guys live ammo against a bunch of students. Maybe, there are ways to march in formation and push them back, but you just stand there and take it. You don't kill people. It was a popular thing, if you will, to be anti-war, but it didn't follow through as far as why we were there, the George Kennan containment theory, the domino theory, what was going to happen if we left. We were in this thing knee-deep, and President Nixon, for good or for ill, said, we're going to get out of this. He campaigned in 68. And by 72, when I got over there were no combat aircraft left in Vietnam. They were flying from Thailand, but the Vietnamese were taking over the war as best they could. So we had a gradual drawdown. Now, it didn't work. In 75, everything fell apart. But to think through that in 1970 as a student protest, it was just the thing to do. We had a different rumor every day. the most persistent was, it's going to be over and we'll be out of this country in 7 days after they sign the piece of paper. And another one was, well, we're going to go home and you'll go home and wait for orders at your home of residence. I've got letters that I read last night. Oh, I'm coming home before Christmas. I don't believe there's a service person in America that has ever served in any war who didn't write home and say, I'll be home before Christmas. I'm just one of them. Civil War, whatever. We quit flying in a uniform when you went somewhere in those days. And the legends go on about, my brother-in-law was a major, told me he got spit on in San Francisco. The whole thing about coming home is the war ended in January. POWs came home to a hero's welcome, which they justly deserved. The Cambodian conflict ended in August. The war kind of moved away from the presence of people. And although there was still hostility, when you got home, it was like, hey, you're home. I can recall vividly getting off the plane at Travis Air Force Base north of San Francisco, and they said, when you get to the San Francisco airport, go immediately to the USO and get out of your uniform, because you'll get hassled. War's been over 6, 8, 10 months, you'll get hassled. You just try to blend in. That still bothers me. Last year, I retired a guy out at Offutt Air Force Base, kid I had sworn in from the Air Force Academy many, many years ago, and he retired. So he asked me to come in uniform to retire him. And as I left, I went back to the Omaha airport, parked the rental, and I'm going to catch my plane. And as I'm walking from the rental car to the terminal, 3 people, including somebody in an automobile, stopped and thanked me for my service. That feels very weird because it didn't used to be that way, and it reminds you that people are fickle, that one day you're a hero, the next day you're a bum, the day after that you're a hero. And I thank them, and we still get that. We went to high school reunions. Oh, you're in the, thank you for your service. And I'm sure that they mean it, but there's still that little right there where you go, too little, too late.